Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's episode number 450 of The Riverfront, the world's spookiest Halloween podcast this week, where we discuss the Cincinnati Reds and occasionally Johnny Gomes. I'm your host, Chad Dotson. With me this week he's with us every week, Nate Dotson. How are you, Nate?
Chad, if I was any better, I would be a United States Congressperson's investment portfolio. I'm doing well.
Outstanding. That's pretty impressive. Yes. So I'm glad you're doing that well. Also with us again this week is you know him if you've been listening to the show for a long time. He's been avoiding us for a while for some reason, but it's the Podfather, Bill Lack. How are you, Bill?
I escaped from that dive bar we were just talking about.
Oh, Bill spending many, many hours in dive bars taking incredible selfies.
Bad lack selfies, baby. Bad lack selfies.
Before we get into the news of the week, which is not a lot, but we do have some fun things to talk about. I do want to say, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and smash the subscribe button. You can't just press it. You have to smash it, okay? You do have consent to smash it. If you're listening to the audio version, why not subscribe? I mean, really, why not? You get to have my voice in your phone every single week. Amazing. For free. And so wherever you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, I don't know. But whatever's out there, we're there. And then one last thing before we get into it, this show would not be possible without the support of our Patreon family. So thank you, patreon.com/riverfrontcincy. Thanks all of you. Let's get into the Reds news, but actually before, it's quasi-Reds news because we're going to talk about the World Series for just a moment. And that's not Reds news in general. Ever. Although, shall we say, this was this week I think was the anniversary of the Carlton Fisk home run in Game 6 of the 1975 World Series, also known as the last time the Cincinnati Reds lost a World Series game. The Reds have a 9-game World Series winning streak, which dwarfs everyone else's winning streak in the World Series. We need something to celebrate. Why not that? Bill, what do you think? You remember the 75 World Series?
I do remember the 75 World Series. I was a senior in high school. I was counseling at a camp for underprivileged kids, and they wouldn't let us watch the Game 6 on television. So once we got all the kids asleep, we all the counselors snuck off to an empty cabin and listened to the game on the radio. And the next night they did let us watch games. And you know what? If you live in Boston, you think they won that series in 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The way they celebrate that, yes. I will say this, that our buddy Joe Farsing of the Riverfront Bengals show did the research. Longest, because I asked the question, but I wasn't going to waste time actually researching it. How many current MLB teams have an intact 9-game World Series winning streak? No one, obviously, but the Reds. The second best current winning streak in the World Series, Baltimore, of all teams, with 4. And the Chicago White Sox have won their last 4 World Series games.
Did he look up and see what the record was by any chance?
No, just who has this current winning streaks.
Yeah. I would have to assume it's the Yankees with the longest.
Oh, probably you would think,
Yeah.
but I don't know. That's a good question. Actually, who has the longest postseason winning streak? I don't know.
Well, the highest win percentage.
That would be the Yankees.
Well, the reason I thought about that was because the Johnny Bench, of all people, tweeted something. First of all, don't tweet Johnny Bench. There's no percentage in it, as they say. But there was a tweet about the Houston Astros, I guess, have won. They have a chance to win, or they've won. They're 7-0 right now, so they have a chance to have an undefeated playoffs. And so the question was the last team to go 7-0 or to win at least 7 consecutive games. That was the 76 Reds, who were undefeated in the playoffs. So anyway, yes, here we are. We're talking about the 1970s on this 2022 Cincinnati Reds podcast. Nate, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts about the 1970s? What do you remember?
Yeah, it just must be nice. Both of you have witnessed World Series with the Reds participating. I don't know, man. I hate this time of year. I'm forced to watch scary movies and TV shows every day this month with my better half. Love her. The movies, take them or leave them. Some fan bases are getting fired up. They're excited. And here I am trying to figure out whether I want to root for Dusty Baker or Nick Castellanos.
Well, that's something I do want to talk about. Yes, the Reds failed to qualify for the World Series for the 32nd consecutive season.
By that much.
Just barely. Just barely. And that is what it comes down to. It's the Philadelphia Phillies with our old friend, Nick Castellanos, and the Houston Astros, who are managed by our even older friend, Dusty Baker. Those are really the only Reds connections, unless you want to consider Zach Wheeler, who I screamed that the Reds should sign a few years ago as a free agent. And of course, they didn't. He went to the Phillies, and now he's been amazing. So, Nate, I'll go to you first. Who do you choose out of those, Nick Castellanos or Dusty Baker? Where are you going?
Well, first, I want to say that Bill made a joke. So, they were this close. But you know what ticks me off? The Phillies were the 6th seed with 87 wins. Last year, the Reds had 83 wins. They were this close. The Phillies putting themselves in position to fielding a team that could have got it. So, I hate this time of year. I am going to go for the Phillies. I don't particularly care about the city of Philadelphia in general. Take it or leave it, but I haven't totally gotten over some of the 2017 stank from the cheating scandal. I wish they could switch managers right now and Dusty could manage the Phillies. This would make this a lot easier for me because I would love to see Dusty get a ring. But there are too many people that are still on that team that were complicit in something that I can't get behind, obviously. So I'm going to go for the Phillies. And, yeah.
And our buddy Nick. Bill, what about you? Who you got here from a Reds angle?
I guess I'm going to root for the Phillies as much as I'm going to root for anybody, only because I guess I just came back from my Navy reunion, and some friends of mine that I reconnected with at the reunion are Philly people. They're big Phillies fans. They were all over the playoffs during the reunion, so I'm hoping it goes well for them.
That is a good angle. I'm going to disagree with you all, as I usually do. I'll be on the other side of the coin. But I will say that back when the Reds played the Phillies in that 2010 playoffs, that was like the dawn of Twitter for me, And I made a lot of friends, actually, with Phillies fans at that time. I still follow. They still follow me for some reason. Every once in a while, I'm like, I just need to unfollow these people. I don't care about the Phillies, but they're still following me, and we talk occasionally about other things. Most of the 76ers, who I occasionally like when I watch the NBA. But I can't go for the Phillies. I can't go for the Phillies, and there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, this gets me slammed every time I say it more than anything else, but I'm going to say it. I don't care. I do not care about the cheating scandal. I absolutely do not care at all about the Astros cheating scandal. I wish the Reds had tried harder to cheat. This is professional sports, okay? I don't care. I want you to try to cheat. If you're not trying, you're not trying to win. So the fact that the Reds weren't trying to cheat is well, they probably were trying to cheat, but they weren't doing it as well as the Astros.
You've watched a little too much Days of Thunder.
Okay, that's one Tom Cruise movie I've never seen. I'm embarrassed to say.
Robert Duvall, baby.
A Robert Duvall movie. Robert Duvall lives in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Did you all know that?
No, I did not. I think he's the greatest living American actor.
I had a meeting yesterday in Charlottesville, Virginia, and somebody was talking about how they saw him not too long ago out to lunch with Sissy Spacek.
Ooh.
In Charlottesville. Weird. Anyway,
doesn't matter.
Yeah. What are we talking about here? Come on. What was I going? Oh, the other reason why I'm going to pull again. I'm like Bill. I'm not really pulling for anybody. I don't really care, but to the extent that I am cheering for someone, it's going to be for Dusty. And the reason is this: I think that I was unfair to Dusty Baker on this show, and when I was writing at the various places that I wrote when Dusty was here. Dusty had and still has real flaws as a manager. His in-game management skill when he's with the Reds was horrific. It's less bad now because so much of managing is done in the front office, essentially from above, and Dusty's been willing to go along with that in some respects with the Astros. But the stuff Dusty does well, I did not give him enough credit for when he was here. I only recognized it after he left. This is me admitting that I was wrong. I'm not afraid to do that. I think what Dusty does well. What Dusty does well. First time. That's not completely unfair. He was a big part of the reason the Reds completely flunked out in the playoffs when he was here. But he was also a big part of the reason why they were actually in the playoffs. And so yeah, he's been around forever. He's never won a series. I would like to see him get a ring or a wing. I don't either one of those. Some wings maybe. He seems like a good dude, everybody that knows him thinks he's an interesting guy, and I don't know. I'm cheering for that guy. I like Nick Castellanos. Love Nick Castellanos. I'll never forget him, flexing over the stupid Cardinal pitcher at home plate. But I'm going for Dusty for whatever that matters.
And Dusty does have a ring, by the way. Dusty's got a ring as a player in 1981. So let's not pretend that he's just never ever won one.
That was the Stevie Yeager MVP season in the World Series. Yeah, I just dropped the 1981 World Series MVP on you. Stevie Yeager, catcher. Also broke the sound barrier, Bill. Is that true?
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Yeah, same guy.
Boy, and he did it with a broken rib. I saw that in the Right Stuff.
That's a deep cut that maybe only Bill and I will understand. So the news of the week for the Cincinnati Reds, because we've kind of exhausted any kind of Reds related connection to the actual World Series since they aren't there. The biggest news of the week, obviously, Ryan Hendricks designated for assignment and would not accept an outright move to AAA, and so he's going to be a free agent. Guys, we've lost Ryan Hendricks. What will we ever do? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, change of scenery.
Exactly.
If you want to get back to the big leagues, where do you got a better shot than here?
Yeah, who refuses that out? Because you're coming to spring training and the bullpen's garbage. You got a shot.
I mean, the guy had two seasons in Cincinnati, and he never had an ERA below 5. He probably didn't believe in what was going into the stew in Cincinnati.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, he's eyeing Pittsburgh, I guess. Did you all know? Also announced just today. As always, we record this on Thursday night. Just today, a Cincinnati Reds player was named as a finalist for the Silver Slugger Award at his position. Can you believe this? An actual player from the 2022 Cincinnati Reds qualified for a Silver Slugger Award. If you were going to guess 3 months ago who that might have been, I would have said, well, it's probably going to be Tyler Stevenson, right? It was not Tyler Stevenson. It was Brandon Drury, San Diego Padres' Brandon Drury. So I don't know. It's like a reflected glory. I'm trying to claim Drury as our own.
So if he wins it, do they cut the bat in half and send half of it to Cincinnati and keep half of it in San Diego?
They should. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, didn't realize it was like the Player of the Year in college basketball award where they just nominate everybody with a letter in their last name. Both leagues. There's like 70 people nominated for the Silver Slugger. Congratulations.
It's true. I'm trying to claim that glory for the Reds on getting a player as a finalist, but it was Brandon Drury. That's the headline. Brandon Drury is a finalist for a slip. I mean, he had a good year and he was really good with the Reds, but come on. What are we talking about here? There was one actual, joking around about Brandon Drury and Ryan Hendricks aside, there was one actual bit of news that is interesting to me anyway, and some of you as well, and that is the Cincinnati Reds announced this week that Bronson Arroyo has been elected to the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame and will be inducted in 2023. I'll go to you first, Bill. What do you think about this news? Bronson Arroyo, a deserving Reds Hall of Famer, I say.
I think he was the obvious choice in the fan vote. I'm guessing it wasn't even close. I think it's a great choice. He was a great Red from every facet of helping the franchise, from on the field to off the field to in the community. I'm real happy for him.
Absolutely. Nate, thoughts about Bronson Arroyo?
Everybody talks about what Bronson added to the franchise, but they don't talk about what the Reds had to give up. And I can't get behind anyone being in the Reds Hall of Fame when you had to give up Willie Mo Pena to get him. This is ludicrous. What are we even talking about?
Willie Mo may have hit the longest home run I've ever seen. It was in Dayton, and I think it's still going up.
Unlike his career trajectory.
That's true.
That's obviously the immediate takeaway, Nate, is that they had to give up Willie Mo Pena. How dare they? But any other thoughts about Bronson Arroyo?
It's a no-brainer. He absolutely deserves it. I won't say he deserves it more than anyone that is in contention or should be in contention, but unequivocally, 6th in club history in strikeouts, 7th in starts, 16th in wins. People forget about how good he was in that. He got an MVP vote in 2006, 14-11 with a 3.29. Got a fifth place vote for Cy Young in 2010 and a Gold Glove, and that epic Game 2 in the NLDS against San Francisco when he retired his first 14 batters. And he carried the Reds in a period when the only success of my adult life the Reds have ever had, and he was the rock. He was steady. He was the guy who sort of ushered him through that, in my opinion. Yeah, totally deserves it.
Yeah, no brainer.
When you said guys in contention, you aren't talking about anybody else that was on the ballot this year, are you?
Correct. I'm not.
Okay. Then I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
Right. Bronson Arroyo, when the day he retired, I think that's maybe the first thing I said was obvious Reds Hall of Famer. I mean, to me, it's not even a question. I mean, absolutely without question. And kind of a neat personality and all that, whatever. That he gets a lot of the guitar and the Pearl Jam and the hair and that crazy goofy leg kick. But the guy was good.
He lived on a boat.
Yeah, lived on a boat. But the guy was legitimately good for the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, and that's right. William O'Pena. It's always funny to talk about that. But when the Reds got Arroyo, I mean, he'd been decent. He was with the Pirates, and then he was with the Red Sox, won that championship with the Red Sox. But he was 29 years old when he came over to Cincinnati. And I was interested they had a press conference with him and some of his quotes talking about when he came over to Cincinnati and what Cincinnati meant. Ended up meaning to him. But he said when he came over, he was really, really disappointed. It was like the lowest moment in his life when he was traded from Boston to Cincinnati, which is not what you expect to hear. But now he always shot straight. But I mean, they just won a World Series, and he was kind of a key part of that team, and he was looking forward to sticking with that. And then he also, after saying he was disappointed, he went on to slam the Reds organization, which. Oh, it was kind of glorious in some ways.
I didn't see that. I need to see that. They must have the article I read definitely picked through which quotes they used. Apparently.
Well, let me read the quote.
Doing that. Imagine the Enquirer doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Local media, baby. That's why the Riverfront is the only outlet that will tell you the truth. Okay, you just need to understand that the Riverfront is literally the only outlet. I take that back. Cincinnati Magazine allows me to speak the truth as well. So I got to say that as well. Here's the quote. I came to spring training, after coming from the Red Sox camp where they had a chef and they were putting food out. I came to spring training with the Reds that we had no breakfast. There were a lot of things. We didn't have a chiropractor. We didn't have a masseuse at the time. There were a lot of things that I felt like I was moving backwards in the game. It probably took me the better part of the first 3 months of that first season to really stop watching Red Sox games and feel like I was a part of the Reds locker room. First of all, in 2006, the Reds, again, were not doing things that most other organizations were doing, and no one is surprised about that. But then he went on to praise his time in Cincinnati and talk about how he was accepted and how much he ended up enjoying it. But it's right. I mean, we were just coming off a period in the early 2000s, and then it kept going, but where the Reds had this offense that we thought every year we're like, oh, this offense is great. They had Dunn and they had Junior Griffey, and we're like, the offense is going to score some runs. And every year it was a collection of idiots in the rotation, just absolute straight turds, 1 through 5. From Jimmy Haynes to Eric Milton and Brandon Clausen. I mean, and those guys are probably nice guys, and I hope they're not mad when they hear this because I'm sure they're listening. But then all of a sudden we had Aaron Harangue and Bronson Arroyo, 2 legit Reds Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. And it was different. And Arroyo was not a superstar. He's not an MLB Hall of Famer. But that guy's one of the best pitchers in Reds history, and I'm thrilled. There are other people that are more deserving to be in than him that are not in yet, which we can talk about. But I'm thrilled that Bronson Arroyo's in. He's I don't know. And part of this is he was really nice to my son one year at the ballpark. They had the players opening day. They do that thing, and he went out of his way to be nice to my son, not knowing I'm not anybody, but he didn't know anything about me or who I was. I was just a random guy with a I don't know, 8-year-old kid or something, And so anyway, just seems like a genuinely good guy, has his head screwed on straight, even though his hair is too long. Stinking hippie. But congratulations, Bronson Arroyo. You're my favorite hippie.
I would be remiss if I didn't say what my wife would say when if she were sitting here right now. Do you know where Bronson Arroyo was born?
Middletown, Ohio. Oh, no, that's Kyle Schwarber. I do not.
Key West, Florida.
Ooh.
I think I did know that, actually, yes.
So that's I'm putting that out there for my wife.
Well, we talked about Bill's dive bars and all that. Bill and Key West are intimately acquainted. That's
I met my wife in Key West.
Really?
Wow.
Captain Tony. If you're a Jimmy Buffett fan, you know who Captain Tony is.
Absolutely.
Captain Tony introduced us.
Wait, I've known you all for a while. I had no idea. You're both from the Cincinnati area, right?
We were both here. We both had Bengals season tickets at the time. Our sections were right next to each other.
She was working Fifth Third or something. Is that right?
She was at PNC Bank, and she was in Miami on business and came down to Key West for the weekend. And I was down there with some friends, and Captain Tony introduced us.
She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. Incredibly poor judgment.
Oh,
she has horrible judgment.
She made poor decisions that whole time.
Interesting.
Listen, it's the off season, by the way. We can do a whole podcast late in a couple of weeks on how Bill and Linda met. I mean, I'm into this.
Actually, Bill,
we could just do a dive bar podcast.
Oh, yes, there we go. We
can talk about Austin.
I'm not opposed to this.
Ooh, that's right, Austin. We can talk about Austin since Nate and I.
Mom and Dad cannot listen.
Exactly. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that, and I guess you should know, Bill, that Nate and I now have a cousin who spends at least half the year in Key West, and we've been talking about getting down there and seeing him. So we need to coordinate all that. Anyway, whatever. These are conversations we should have had before or after the show. Can we move on, please?
Are we going to talk about the Veterans Committee in the Reds Hall of Fame?
That's the next question. Who should be the next person elected to the Reds Hall of Fame? Who is the biggest snub? Talk to me, Bill. The Veterans Committee. Talk to me.
One second. Let me throw something out real quick. So tell me if I'm incorrect. The Veterans Committee can still nominate someone for the next induction?
Yes, for the same induction is the way I understand.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me add something before we go any further. I'm still seriously upset because I have tried to convince someone to put me on, because I care more about the Reds Hall of Fame than literally anyone on earth. And they will not put me on this Veterans Committee. Why shouldn't I be on there? Because I actually care about who goes in. Of course, now if I got on there,
they should put you under the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's true. Actually, the current administration in Cincinnati would agree with that.
All three of us, yeah.
Yeah, but of course, I would try to kick Ron Oster out if they put me on there, so I don't think that's possible. But anyway, Bill, go ahead. I'll hand it back to you.
I think there's one person that we've all talked about over the years that should be on there, but we were just going by the people that were on the ballot this year, and that's what I get the impression from what I'm reading. I may be completely wrong that is what they're going to use is their criteria. To me, if you go by that criteria, it's Aaron Harang is the obvious choice. We've talked about Reggie Sanders over the years, and him not being in the Reds Hall of Fame is just a crime.
Absolutely. Listen, if you had to ask me, I'd take Harang before I'd take Arroyo. I mean, I think they're both completely deserving.
I don't think I would have done that.
Well, can you make the argument though? I think you can make the argument. I think I would, just because he was kind of the anchor.
Argument. I think it's 1 and 1A, whichever way you go. But
I feel worse for Harang. Harang he should get in just for the crap he had to deal with for several years there.
Absolutely, and the way again, go back to Dusty, but Dusty kind of ended his career, unfortunately.
Oh
yeah. So, but I don't know. Reggie Sanders is kind of I've taken that on as my cause because it's a complete disgrace, and the only reason we'll talk about the 1995 Reds in a moment. The only reason he's not in, to my mind, is because he played poorly in one 4-game series in the 1995 playoffs.
Yeah,
he was not good.
Hold it against him that much?
Oh, Nate, you were a kid. You don't know.
It was ugly.
Every time I mention Reggie Sanders on the Twitters or here or wherever, I get someone coming back at me. But he struck out a bunch in the 1995 NLCS, and he struck out a bunch in the. I mean,
he did not
horrible.
look good.
So these are the same people that hate Aaron Judge right now, that think everything he did in the regular season was useless and he doesn't deserve a dime in free agency. Same kind of people.
Exactly. And it really is a complete disgrace that Reggie Sanders is not in the Reds Hall of Fame. And again, nobody cares. Who cares about the Reds Hall of Fame? Well, I do for some reason. I take it way too serious. I don't know why I care who's in and who's out. I don't know why I care which current inductees, Ron Oster, don't belong. And, which current players that are on the active roster have a chance to make it. Kyle Farmer. I don't know. I just love it. I just love it. And the Reds haven't always loved it. They put some dumb people in. And for a 10-year period between 1988 and 1998, they didn't put anybody in. They didn't care. So why should I care? But I do like that they're kind of committed to it now. And
it's also a fair comparison to being a Reds fan. They don't care. Why should we? Because we do.
That's a good point. All right, there's a single. If you're not watching on YouTube, there's a single tear rolling down my cheek.
Well, Reggie Sanders is kind of replaced. We were like this with Freddie Norman for years. And Reggie Sanders has kind of replaced Freddie Norman. Now that we got Freddie, well, I won't say we got Freddie in, but we were a part of getting Freddie in, I think.
I think so too.
And now we've turned our attention to promoting Reggie Sanders, and I think he's at least, if not more, qualified for the Reds Hall of Fame than Freddie was.
Well, I think he's more. Yeah.
What are the requirements for the veteran committee? Like, is he even eligible for that, or is it there need to be?
I honestly don't know. And with the Reds, who the hell knows if there are any rules?
No, it's vague. It's really vague. There's no actual rules. I don't think. If there are, I don't think they're public. Because
where are you going to go?
Looked into it. Where are you going to go?
Well, is there anybody else that you think that y'all think needs to sort of be prioritized?
Who are the biggest snubs? I mean, I think Sanders and Harangue to me are two of the biggest snubs. John Franco is the third to me. It's kind of disgraceful he's not in. John Franco. People don't realize, I know he's a Met, but he was the best reliever in the league for the Reds.
Yeah, I think that's one of those ones where he spent most of his career somewhere else, so people don't think of him as a Red.
But still, he was great.
Is Tom Seaver in the Reds Hall of Fame?
I don't think so.
Yeah, see,
and yeah, he probably should be actually. No,
I don't know if he should. He pitched for the Reds for what, 6 years? Was it 6 years?
Yeah, but he was pretty good.
He was good for at least 3 of them. He was really good for 2 of them. But anyway.
Being really good for 2 years is a
pitcher for the Reds.
Yeah, right. That's a pretty good. I'm looking it up as we talk here, but you mentioned Fred Norman, Bill, and a lot of our listeners won't know who Fred Norman is, frankly, but we did kind of what's that?
Then they need to go listen to our series.
Yeah, Fred Norman came on the show and Bill did it was a 2-part interview. Yeah, it was so long with Fred Norman, and it was fascinating. And yes, absolutely deserving.
Well, and he was a big part of when we were doing the building the machine.
Right. First of all, Tom Seaver, class of 2006 in the Reds Hall of Fame. Tom Seaver is in.
If Seaver's in, then Franco should be in.
Franco should absolutely be in.
I just want to throw it out there and you guys know that very few people on this planet, potentially including his parents, love Adam Dunn more than I do, who is a member. Reggie Sanders had more wins above replacement for the Reds than Adam Dunn had in his whole career.
Are you slandering Adam Dunn? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm slandering the people that aren't putting Reggie Sanders in. Adam Dunn should be in. He should probably be the president. They should rename it the Adam Dunn Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame.
Nate hates Adam Dunn. That's the title of this episode.
Maybe a slash.
Get out of here. Get out of here. You're all fired.
No, you're absolutely right. It's to me, again, and it's not an important thing. Who cares? It's the Reds Hall of Fame.
You know who I bet it's important to? Some of these people.
Well,
Reggie Sanders would probably give a crap.
Well, I mean, I wrote about him at Cincinnati Magazine, and we ended up connecting a little bit, and he came on the show. He was on an episode of the show back in the day, so I'm partial to him as well because he's a friend of the podcast at this point.
Did you talk about the Reds Hall of Fame with him?
Oh yes. And I need
How did he feel? What was
well, I mean, he was diplomatic. He was, I loved my time as the Red. This was before he was on the ballot at the time we did the interview, because I was trying to make a play and show how much power I had at that time. I couldn't get him on, but he was very complimentary of the Reds and talked about his time with the Reds. And really, we need to repost that. And actually, I probably should pull that out, and even though it's just audio, and put it on the YouTubes as well, because it was a fun interview. And he's an unbelievably nice guy. This is what everyone will tell you. He's a man of faith. He's just kind to everyone. And I don't know. I should not care, but I do care that Reggie Sanders is not in the Reds Hall of Fame. I don't care that he struck out 1,000 times in one series.
If you're going to have a Hall of Fame and you don't have the best people in it, then there isn't a whole lot of point to it.
Ron Oster.
Well, I don't have as much trouble with the guys at the bottom getting in as I do with the guys that are at the top that don't get in.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Totally fair.
That's a great point. I could actually live with a Hall of Fame with Ron Oster in it. He played for the Reds for a long time. He's a local guy.
Phil Rizzuto's in the National Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right. So, but how do you ignore guys like Aaron Harang and Reggie Sanders and John Franco? Those are guys that are quintessential Reds Hall of Famers to me. So
why do we have to wait so long to induct Kyle Farmer? This is malarkey.
He could be the first active Hall of Famer.
I have a Kyle Farmer stat that I came across.
Wait, what?
Let's go. Unscripted. I'm all about this.
In 583 plate appearances this year, Kyle Farmer's wins above replacement was?
I don't know.
1.0.
That's good.
In 276 plate appearances, Aristides Aquino had a 1.4 wins above replacement.
Ooh.
That is incredible. I hadn't noticed that. And it's all on defense for Aquino, but
I'm sure it is.
Aristides Aquino was better than Kyle Farmer.
Aquino throws balls so hard and accurate.
Yeah.
That half of him is.
That could be your T-shirt. Aquino throws balls.
Get that on the merch shop, Nate.
Okay, I'm on it.
Aquino throws ball. All right. Anyway, I said this was going to be a short podcast, and I was wrong, because we've already gotten off the rails. Bill, I guess let's maybe not spend too much time on it, but you had an idea for the show, and I wanted to dive into it just a little bit. Go ahead and drop that for us.
Well, the 2022 Reds in all their glory. How many of the Reds will you how many guys that played at some point this year on this team will you remember in 10 years?
Joey Votto. That's the only one.
Shoot. Stole my answer.
I mean, if we're being honest, if we're talking about, first of all, we're talking about players that ended the season with the Reds. That's what I'm going with.
I'm just looking at the list on Baseball Reference.
I mean, Votto, India, Stevenson.
You think? How sure are you're gonna remember India or Stevenson in 10 years?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, if we remember Chris Sabo as wonderfully as we do, as reverently as we do, then I think Jonathan India is right there.
What about 20 years?
Well, we remember Scott Williamson, who won the Rookie of the Year. I mean,
this also isn't fair. Like, Chad's pretty old. In 20 years, he's going to start losing a lot of memories.
Early onset.
It'll go same place as his hair. I don't have any room to talk.
Yeah, unfunny.
Not funny at all. Please don't watch on YouTube if you're not watching already on YouTube, because you get to see that.
I mean, I'm even looking at this thing. There aren't many guys on this team I'll remember in 2 years.
Taylor Motter? You won't remember Taylor Motter?
This team might have the record for most players that you won't remember in 2 years.
Michael Papierski.
You just made him up.
Yeah, he never actually played for the Reds. Come on, Bill.
Max Schrock. That's like a private detective name. Max Schrock.
Private detective name.
Max,
Yeah, I want
PI.
to see the show where Max Schrock and former Reds pitcher Dick McGuire are 1950s private detectives.
That's right. In
PIs.
downtown Chicago, the mean street.
Max Schrock and Dick McGuire, PI. That's the show. Now, this team has the highest percentage of future obscure former Reds of any team in history.
Absolutely. JT Riddle.
Which is a shame because that's a great name.
It is a great name, but he played for the Reds this year?
I had forgotten about him.
Yeah,
I had already forgotten.
He got 4 plate appearances.
He's the latter day DT. He's the latter day DT Cromer. For those of you that are into obscure former Reds.
Derek Law. That's another good name. That's a good name.
It's a good name, but I remember nothing about him other than that he exists. Yeah, there are just so many on this year's team. Chucky Robinson.
Raynel
Good story.
Espinal.
Who?
Raynel Espinal.
Are you sure?
Wait,
0-1, 7.71 ERA, got in 2 games.
Raynel Espinal. Now, look, I watch a lot of Reds. We talk about the Reds. I watch them every night. This is October of 2022. I literally do not remember those 2 games.
Yeah, to get to Bill's question, to remember something in 10 years, you would have had to have heard of them.
Yeah.
I don't remember this guy because I didn't know he existed.
So
that's actually the only guy on the roster that Kyle Dowdy. Who's Kyle Dowdy?
Espinal pitched in September. He pitched in the second game of the doubleheader on September the 13th and against the Cardinals on September the 16th.
Kyle Dowdy was the pitching director.
No, that was Kyle Bodie. Oh my goodness! You know, we fought TJ Zoik. I do remember him because I remember making fun of his name. But it's October, and there's some of these that I have already forgotten.
Oh yeah,
and we follow this team closer than 99% of fans out there.
I just want to say it real quick. This season sucked. It was no fun. We had fun, but the 2022 Reds were stupid, and I hated them.
The 2022 Reds were so stupid.
You're stupid.
I didn't like them at all.
I mean, I'm assuming that the numbers on Baseball Reference are correct, and if they are, there were 66 guys that suited up for the Reds this year.
Yes.
That's hysterical.
Chris Oakey. Chris Oakey's a good one.
That is a good one. I know where Chris Oakey went to college for some reason.
Can't imagine why.
Catcher at Clemson. No, he did not go to the University of Virginia.
Oh, yeah, that's not where I would have guessed. Yeah.
Michael Ciani played for the Reds, and he was supposed to go to University of Virginia.
I wish I could forget that Hunter Strickland was a Red.
Actually, you know what? That friend of mine that I was talking about earlier that in Philly, I think it was his brother coached Ciani in Little League.
Oh.
He told me this at the reunion.
So is it his fault that
fun fact?
It's not that fun. It's a fact.
Just throwing it out there.
It's a fact. Nate, you mentioned something that actually I think that I'm probably most proud of in my entire life. We've all done some things, but the thing that I'm most proud of is that in the year 2022, in which the Cincinnati Reds were stupid.
They were stupid, man.
We somehow figured out how to laugh every single week on this show. It was hard around the trade deadline. It was hard in spring training. But we've had more laughs, sometimes at the expense of the Reds.
If you ain't going to laugh, baby, you're going to cry.
There you go.
I can't. I'm an ugly crier. I cannot do it on camera.
We can't do that. All right. Can we do some viewer mail? What do you think, Nate?
Let's do it. It's time.
Well, before we do that, Nate, there's something I do want to talk to you about. Because honestly, let's be honest. We need to talk about the way Nate dresses. It's generally not good.
Well,
but today's episode is sponsored. It didn't used to be. It's great now. Today's episode is sponsored by True Classic Tees, guys. Can we talk about T-shirts? Nate, look, I know you and I are the same way. Finding a good fitting T-shirt can be awful, but we found some. Am I right?
You are totally right, guys. I don't get it. Do you like looking bad? Have you talked to your wives to get some fashion tips? Because there's one company out there that makes tees made for you and for me. They fit tight around your guns. They leave a little breathing room. They take the dad bod to a rad bod. And no joke, we're not reading scripts here. I have been wearing these tees for 3 years, and that's why I reached out to them to see if they would be willing to work with us at all. So happy to have them on board. The tees are awesome. I've gotten all my buddies wearing them. They're comfortable. They're easy. They're cheap. True classic tees. Thank you guys.
That's the thing. We do love our family. We talk about the family here all the time. If you hear Nate and I talking about some hash brown brand, it's good. We're not gonna go there and tell you to go support. I don't know, Lululemon or some kind of nonsense. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, I guess. Oh, actually, okay. I'm not gonna go there, but yeah, I'm okay with Lululemon. True classic tees is something that Nate and I both wore, but wait long before we. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing one tonight. And I'm sorry, True Classic tees, but I do. It's the only T-shirt I wear. Nate is absolutely. Nate's got a hat somewhere close to him. I bet that he'll put on that says True Classic tees as well. And so I promise you, we're not gonna have any partners on the show that we don't trust. So
yeah, big fans. Like Ted just said, we would never, ever, when we've been talking about potentially getting sponsorships and support, we would never recommend anybody that we don't believe in. And if you want to give them a try for yourself, you can either go to the website below, trueclassictees.com/riverfront, or use the promo code Riverfront, one word, RIVERFRONT, for 25% off your next order. True Classic is the jam. Boom.
Absolutely. So there we go. Now let's move on to viewer mail. As always, these are actual letters from actual viewers. If they weren't, would I lie to you about that? Come on. First question. These questions all come from our friends at patreon.com/riverfrontcincy. That's patreon.com/riverfrontcincy, where you can support the show. First one comes from Seth Shaner. Seth says, the World Series. I remember the World Series. In 1990, he says, I was a sixth grader in Malta, Ohio. Bill, where is Malta, Ohio?
I have no idea. I have never heard.
I don't either.
I'm looking that up while you're reading the question.
There we go. We're gonna drive to Malta, Ohio here soon, and I'm sure there's gonna be a sign outside the town that says "Home of Seth Shaner." My best friend had one parent who liked the Reds and one who liked the Indians, so he naturally liked Mark McGwire. Wait, what? And thus rooted for the A's. When Eric Davis hit the Game 1 home run, I basically invented trash talk by calling my friend and seeing whether he saw my favorite player hit the homer that I just knew. Ended the series right then and there. Where were you, and how did you celebrate Davis stuns Goliath? We're talking, of course, about the 1990 World Series Game 1 when Eric Davis hit the home run off Oakland ace Dave Stewart, in which the whole world kind of stood up and said, "Oh, wait a minute, this Reds team might be legit." Where were you? I'll tell you where I was at the time. I was on my parents' couch, and I was actually, because I was insane. I was a teenager at the time. I was wearing one of those satin Reds starter jackets. Remember those starter jackets? Still have it, by the way. My son wore it not too long ago just because it was retro.
Can you fit into it?
I can now. I couldn't 2 years ago, but I can now. So I was sitting on the couch, and when it happened, I had no reaction. I was stunned because I had spent the last week getting just abused by my friends who all were telling me that the Oakland A's are going to destroy the Reds. Because, I mean, I had a bunch of friends that were Reds fans, but I grew up just across the Kentucky border in Southwest Virginia, and I don't know, people like there were a lot of Reds fans, but people like to give me a hard time because I was far too obsessive. And I was like, I literally was like, the narrative is that is what told people the Reds had a chance. It's what told the Reds felt like they had a chance after that. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, we really might have a chance to win this thing. So I was completely quiet. I didn't really celebrate that much. I was like, oh my goodness, this is happening. This is happening. So Bill, do you remember actually before you, I want to ask Nate, Do you remember where you were and what you were doing when Eric Davis hit that big home run in Game 1 of the 1990 World Series?
I think you would have to tell me what I was doing. Was I there? Was I even in front of a TV?
I doubt.
I was 5.
I don't think so.
Seth, I gotta say, like 6th grade that year, like you look great for your age, bro. Looking good.
Right.
Aged well.
Yeah. Nate, I don't think you were there, although you were pretty much obsessed with doing whatever I wanted to do at that time. The Big Brother.
That's what I was thinking. Like I might have watched it.
You might have been there. I can't remember.
Full
but
on
you
like
might have been in the
little
room.
bro, big bro mode. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Bill-
not remembering. I appreciate that.
I paid no attention to you growing up. Oh no, that was our other brother. Bill, do you remember where you were?
Well, first report in Malta, Ohio is across the river, and I can't tell what river this is, from McConnellsville, Ohio. And it is southeast of Columbus, about halfway between that and Athens.
Ah,
Okay.
Just to
Athens,
let you
home
know.
of the Ohio University.
Yeah. Actually, no, Athens is over here. It's kind of between Columbus and Parkersburg, West Virginia. Anyway.
So essentially,
Riveting.
Seth lives in West Virginia, is what we're saying.
riveting content.
Anyway, yeah, riveting. Actually, Linda and I, we were in our first townhouse, our first place together, and she was pregnant, and we were watching the game on television. Yes, I do remember where we were.
Ooh.
Why weren't you
Magical.
there at the Riverfront Stadium? How dare you?
I do not
I-
know.
I wasn't because
Because
my
your
parents.
wife was pregnant.
Well, we had been at the last game of the playoffs against the Pirates when
Oh.
Glenn Braggs pulled the ball
Glenn
back over
Bragg's
the fence.
catch out in right field.
Big Glenn. Gotta love Big Glenn.
Oh, this is so disheartening.
And my wife was very pregnant.
Well, you can't be a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you
I don't
get
know
more
that
pregnant as it moves along. You know that.
Is it true?
I'm almost annoyed that the Reds won in 1990 because I can't claim that they've never won a World Series in my lifetime. Even though I've
Oh,
never
right.
seen them win a World Series in my lifetime.
You-
I mean,
Well, that's my
memories when
thing.
I was
If you
5.
just would have grown up, you would have been there. You'd have been able to see it.
Right. I was
Mo-
barely out of diapers for the 1975, 76 teams, but I can't say that it wasn't during my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about
Stupid Reds.
it. Stupid Reds.
I think that's the byword today, isn't it? Stupid.
Oh, that's the title of this episode, baby.
This is a stupid podcast.
That's
Episode
stupid.
stupid.
Oh my goodness. We spent way too much time talking about 1990 and 1975, but hey, it's a
And
Cincinnati
bad
Reds
names
podcast. This is where we are. Next question comes from our buddy Joe Farsing. Joe says this. By the way, Joe Farsing, along with our buddy Nate here, one of the hosts of the Riverfront Bengals show. Can I just say before we go, there we go, Bill's. If you're watching on YouTube, Bill's got his Bengals shirt on. Put him in. Who day. If you're not listening to the Riverfront Bengals show, I don't care if you're a Bengals fan. You need to be listening to them because this week's episode, it's in your feeds now. If you're subscribed, we're everywhere. Same places that this show is, including YouTube. But best episode yet, episode 9 of the podcast. And we talk often about this show getting off the rails and going. That episode never got on the rails. It was the first 15 seconds was outrageous. And Nate also unfortunately admitted that he's a big fan of a questionable movie.
Tell me about it, stud.
How is that questionable?
I agree, Nate. I like that movie too.
American
too.
classic.
I do too, but Joe gave you a hard time for that one, man.
Hey, we're having a really good time over there talking about the Bengals. It's typically, at least the last few weeks, been a little more optimistic than this podcast usually gets, but equally nonsensical and off the rails. So please, if you're a Cincinnati sports fan, come hang out.
Absolutely. Joe's question is related to something that you all spent some time laughing about on the most recent episode. Here's Joe's question. Do you think there's an instance where, quote, booty butt naked, unquote, would be appropriate to use in baseball? And why should that instance be reserved for discussing Ian Jabot? Booty butt naked. Nate, can you explain to our viewers / listeners what booty butt naked means if they don't know?
Long story short, Tyler Boyd catches a 60-yard touchdown pass in the first quarter last week for the Bengals against the Falcons, and a reporter asked T. Higgins how open Tyler Boyd was on that play, and his response was booty butt naked. And I think it's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Joe explained that apparently means uncovered, which
makes sense.
That makes sense.
Out of context, yeah. In context, I guess it does.
But I prefer to think that it was just completely off the cuff and random and has no basis in reality, and I've now started using that as often as possible.
Yeah, I do not want to think about Ian Jabot booty butt naked. Sorry, Joe. Can't do that. Next question comes from Joey Gaditza. Joey's question is this, guys. What was the best Halloween costume you ever wore? The best Halloween costume you ever wore. I'm going to amend that and ask each of you. How old were you the last time you wore a Halloween costume?
In 2 days, the answer will be 37.
I knew that was going to be the answer. Bill, when's the last time you wore?
I couldn't even tell you. It's been so long. I was probably a kid.
I was 11 years old.
Yeah, I'm probably.
I don't do it.
You drew that hard line in the sand at 11 and stuck with it?
I did. Yeah. It's like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. The candy's fun, but come on. What am I doing here? I'm practically an adult.
I hit my stride. I had some good costumes over the years, but there was a period when I was still single where I would dress as a character from the movie Kingsman, which just meant I just put on a baller suit and some glasses.
Great movie, by the way.
Hit the town, having some cocktails, some adult beverages, get in my cups, But then I found my dearly beloved, and I went complete 180. So now every year I just wear a onesie.
Oh, wait, what?
Because you have adult beverages, you're comfy as all get out. At the end of the night, I can just come home and go to bed. I don't have to change clothes. It's perfect.
Does it have a zipper in the front?
This one does have a zipper in the front. It's a Hungry Hippos onesie. So it's a hippo with a bib that says "Feed me."
I mean, the reason I'm just thinking, if you're doing a bunch of drinking, going to the bathroom comes with doing a bunch of drinking, and so you have to have an easy access to the restroom.
If I would have read this question ahead of time, I would have worn the onesie for the entire episode. So I'm looking at it right now.
Oh my goodness!
We can wait.
What our viewers need to understand is there are 4 Dotson brothers, and 2 of them are costume wearers, and 2 are not costume wearers.
This is true.
Nate falls on the costume wearer side. Oh, this is fine. Go have fun. I don't care.
Fun havers, I call them.
Fun havers. I don't like fun. I hate fun, which is also why I've devoted my life to talking about the Cincinnati Reds. But I'm not a costume guy, so I don't really know what my favorite costume ever was. I know what I was the last time I wore a costume because we have a picture. I was Dracula.
Ooh, I've seen that picture. It's a good picture. We should bring it back.
Well, we can't show that picture here because one of our cousins was not dressed appropriately for 2022.
This is true.
That's all we're going to say.
That's all we're going to say.
Yikes. Bill, anything else to say about Halloween costumes?
Please
nothing. No. Thank you.
I have no memory of what my last costume was. Only just know it was a long time ago.
Did they have Halloween when you were 11?
It was real Halloween. I mean, we had real witches that lived up the street. There was a coven, and
how dare you talk about Bette Midler that way?
Frankenstein came trick or treating at our house, and
outrageous, unbelievable. Next question comes from Woo the Reds. That's Woo. 3
What is that again?
5 O's.
5 O's.
Woo the Reds, the one guy that I can't convince to use his actual name here. But anyway, his question is this: why does Chad hate superhero movies? Why does Chad hate superhero movies? Either of you have an answer to that?
Because he has
we just discussed it. He's not classified as a fun haver.
Well, and his taste in movies is very questionable.
That's a fact.
I have better taste in movies than either of you all, and I won't.
You do love bad movies way more than the rest of us.
Yeah, that What was that terrible movie you sent me to? The pizza movie? I can't even remember the name of it. It was so awful.
Licorice Pizza, one of the
That's
best
the one.
movies.
2
Paul
hours,
Thomas
2 hours,
Anderson.
2
You probably
hours plus of my life I will never get back, and I'm still paying for that with my wife.
I bet Chad liked that movie where the girl hooks up with the fish. What was that one? Grinding Nemo?
The Shape of Water. Thank you very much. It was amazing. But you need to
Oh,
take
yeah,
a bow
that
for
one.
that one, Nate. That's fantastic.
I was thinking Splash.
There we go. It's a generational thing, right? Okay, so let me just address this quickly because, again, I thought we were going to have a shorter show. We didn't. I said on the Twitters that I'm sick of superhero movies. I mean, I said, enough already. And I said it in the context of saying there's this new movie out called Black Adam, which is The Rock's superhero movie, which was kind of muddled sometimes, but it was fun. I liked it. 3.5 stars out of 5. And but when I said I'm sick of superhero movies, the knives came out for me on the Twitters, and some jerk, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a complete jerk that I know listens to the show, so I'm telling him, you're a jerk. He said, you don't have to watch superhero movies. And my response was, are you crazy? I watch every movie. And I watch superhero movies. I'm sick of them, but not because I don't enjoy them. I've seen every single one of these recent superhero movies over the last 2 decades, except for one. The one with Rob Stark or Jon Snow or whoever. I don't know what it was. It was The Eternals is what it was called.
No.
I haven't seen that one. But I've seen them all. I just don't like how superhero movies have pushed like other movies out of theaters. Like good directors can't get money to make an actual movie unless they do a superhero movie. In 2022, we couldn't get a Raiders of the Lost Ark or a Jaws or a Star Wars or a Back to the Future. We couldn't do it because there's too many comic book movies. But I'm part of the problem too because I go see every one of them. So I don't hate superhero movies, but I hate superhero movies. That's the response.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I like the superhero movies. But my question is now, after they've gone through the superheroes that everybody knows, and made gazillions and gazillions of dollars doing those, and now they're into what I would call the second tier. They aren't making as much money. So is that going to stop? God, I hope so.
Yeah, it'll phase out.
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. You think so, Nate?
I do. I mean, phase 1, the Marvel phase 1 was so successful.
Mm-hmm.
And they were
good.
billions of dollars for like every other movie they put out. And I think kind of since Avengers Part 2 or whatever it's called wrapped up, there hasn't been a great one. And they've gotten worse and worse. If you want to make an analogy, it's like sports. The game changes. It goes for basketball is everybody had to have 3-pointers, pace and space. And now big men are getting more important again. In the NFL, it went for all high-powered passing offenses, and now the run game matters, and you have to be able to succeed in other places. I think movies are doing the same thing. We went through the era of when I was growing up, it was like the summer blockbuster that everybody looked forward to. Like Independence Day being the best example of that, I think. And then everything was a blockbuster. Every new movie was just a crazy explosion, Michael Bay superhero blockbuster. And I think we're going to start seeing that dial back down.
Okay. Well, you're wrong.
Shoot. Felt good about that.
Jaws. That was the original blockbuster.
Jaws is the original,
yeah. Actually, I saw Jaws in IMAX this summer. They re-released it.
How bad did the shark look in IMAX?
It wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad. I was surprised. Yeah. But anyway, again, we're going to save this for Nate's been bugging me about doing the Riverfront movies show. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to get into pop culture maybe, but here's why Nate, as usual, is completely wrong. It's not kind of petering out. What are the top 4 box office movies in 2022? Do you have any idea what the top 4 are?
No idea.
Top Gun Maverick's the first one. Okay, that's not a comic book movie. Number 2 is an objectively mediocre movie. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
But that arc started in phase 1, so there's some carryover there.
Yeah, but it made more money than any movie in America domestically than any movie other than Top Gun. There's still big time box office winners. Number 4 was The Batman, which was actually good, legitimately good.
Batman and Superman don't count. Those will always be Around and Money.
What was number 3, Chad?
Number 3, literally one of the worst movies I've seen this year. What was the name of it? Jurassic World Dominion. Oh my gosh, that was garbage.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I think that your
It's
argument,
kinda
by the
cool.
way, supports my claim is that none of the movies you've mentioned were original to 2022. Batman's going to be around forever. Doctor Strange, this was the second or third one, and he's been around since 2010 or something.
Well, plus I don't like the context you're putting.
Movie
him in.
form.
You're putting him as box office for 2022. How does that compare to when Iron Man came out in terms of dollars? Just because it was number 1 this year doesn't mean it's a big box office number. It just means it's the best number this year.
How was it in 2020?
But that's the context that we're talking about. Studios are going to keep making the types of movies that make money right now, not what made money back then.
But if that number, if the bar keeps dropping down, at some point they're going to try and get back up above that bar.
And you think they're going to do something original? Here's what I'm saying.
Well, nobody does anything original anymore.
That's what I'm saying. And that's why they're going to keep leaning. Thor, Love and Thunder was number 6, which was fine. I liked it. I've seen it twice. But it wasn't. Thor Ragnarok was a million times better. The number 7 movie at the box office this year, Spider-Man No Way Home. That came out last year.
Spider-Man's up there in the
Batman
Superman rankings.
It was great.
Awesome.
It was fantastic. I loved it. But
I think they will slow down on making any sort of like second tier superhero.
That Chinese Rings movie and
yeah,
I actually like that movie, but most people didn't. But here's why I don't agree with you is that Black Adam, who I had never heard of before this month. I didn't know this was
wouldn't have happened without The Rock.
Well, but it's also
get made without The Rock.
Well, and they've been working on making this for like 10 years.
And all of that is true. Largest opening weekend in The Rock's career.
I mean, that's that's putting The Rock and a superhero together. I mean, that's an equation that's going to make, but I agree with you. I've never heard of. My son had to explain what Black Adam was to me.
Well, apparently he was supposed to be a secondary character in the Shazam movie,
right?
And The Rock was like, no.
So,
yeah, there's some Shazam.
He says that he didn't want to take away from the Shazam guy, but come on, Rock.
Yeah.
Can we move on past superheroes now?
Good grief, please, yes. But Black Adam was fine. Go watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it. Next question comes from, where are we? Jordan Salisbury. That says, okay, so a few podcasts ago, Nate was talking about his free agency in regards to a college basketball team. And this question is only directed to Nate. We're not going to weigh in on this one because I don't want to hear Bill talk about Xavier. And no one wants to hear me talking about UVA. Allow me to make my case for the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. Jordan says, I have 3 selling points. First, the Bearcats and Reds share the same team colors.
Good.
It's sort of true, but too much black in both. Second, they're moving to one of the most exciting basketball conferences, the Big 12, next year. That is unquestionably true. Third, this is where I have a problem. Wes Miller is in his second year as head coach and has picked up a couple of 4-star recruits and is in play for the number 2 player in the country. Come on in, says Jordan. The water is fine. Nate, you going to be a UC Bearcats fan?
I will watch their season with great interest. The colors are, I'm not opposed to the palette. The head coach thing doesn't really matter to me. If I was just going for a head coach, I would just go with Charlotte. It's an hour down the road. Tony Bennett is a stud, super handsome guy, man crush over there. Big 12,
Wait, Nate. Wait, one thing I didn't say. Wait, Nate, hold on. I just need to say it again. Wahoo wah. Sorry, go ahead.
I grew up randomly picked Kansas when I was younger, so the Big 12 does have some appeal to me, though it's going to be hard to go right back into that rooting against them. But I tell you what, if Cincinnati wins the conference this year, I'll be a Bearcats fan.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Ball is in your court, pun slightly intended.
Nate, if you become a Bearcats fan, I'm going to have to discard you from my life.
Wow.
Well, this podcast is the only thing holding our relationship together as it is. So.
It's actually more true than you want to admit. Here's why. Wes Miller. If I had a foul mouth like Joe Farsing on the Bengals podcast, I would say some really foul words about Wes Miller. And here's why. I mean, he's a good coach. He's objectively a good coach. But he's a stupid UNC Tar Heel at heart. That's where he went to college. And so I will never cheer for a team that has a UNC Tar Heel leading their program. So screw Wes Miller. I hope UC is good.
What about Duke? What if he went to Duke?
Oh my gosh, don't get me started. Duke. Come on, Bill. You know, I don't have any love for either UC or Xavier. I like them both. I cheer for both of them because my rooting interest obviously in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and Bill's a Xavier guy. And I think Sean Miller, who's just an unrepentant cheater, but he's back at Xavier.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying to win.
That's what I'm saying. I just said it earlier. I don't mind the cheating. I can forgive that before I can forgive attending a class. Well, he probably didn't attend a class because they're not required to do that at UNC. But if you went to North Carolina, I can't forgive it. So sorry, Jordan. I'm going to be trying to convince Nate not to be a UC fan. Andrew Morin. Andrew's question at patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy in honor of the love that Chad has professed for hobbits. Wait, what?
He's got furry feet.
Oh my goodness. Andrew's been logging on to our Slack channel at Patreon. If you're a Patreon member, part of the family, you get to join our Slack channel. And we've been talking about Lord of the Rings a little bit lately. Who would make a grittier teammate on the 2023 Reds? Kyle Farmer or Frodo Baggins? Either you go ahead. I don't care. Somebody answer that, please.
Aristides Aquino.
Gritty.
I'd rather have Frodo because one he had a ring, so that's nice.
He put that ring on. He could steal bases like crazy.
At the end of his career, he was successful.
Well, spoiler alert!
Frodo,
I've only seen the
the
first one.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings.
If you haven't seen it yet, and we're not worried about it.
You never read the books?
I agree. No, and I've only seen the first movie.
He's not a fun haver.
No, he's not. I read those books in high school.
Well, I didn't. I didn't learn to read until I was 28. I don't care about. I don't care about the Hobbits and the Lord of the Rings and all of my brothers.
But you do care about licorice pizza.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
I'm going to leave you with this. You will never know happiness until you bring Tom Bombadil into your life. That's it.
I don't know what that means.
I know
you don't. Bill, it's been a while since you've read it, so you can be forgiven. But
I'll say this. I have watched in recent times, watched the first movie. I'm going to watch the rest of them because I'm sick of my brothers giving me a hard time about it.
All right. That's good.
So the answer is Kyle Farmer. James Urban, happy Halloween. This has nothing to do with baseball, but I will not apologize for it. And well, you shouldn't. What was the best and worst candy you ever received as a kid while trick-or-treating? There are only one answer for each of those. Best and worst. Best candy, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Ooh.
Worst candy should be, it's a crime against humanity, Circus Peanuts. Circus Peanuts. Bill, do you have a best and worst?
Worst is easy. Peeps. They're disgusting.
Oh, get it.
Peeps for
Peeps
Christmas?
are amazing.
Or for Halloween?
Peeps are disgusting.
Peeps are disgusting for Halloween.
Peeps are disgusting.
But not for
period.
Christmas.
Peeps are disgusting.
Or
period.
Easter.
And the runner-up would be candy corn.
Candy corn is way better. I don't understand the hate against candy corn. I love me some candy corn.
Well, that's because you're wrong all the time.
It tastes like chalk. I love chalk.
And the best would be, I like the Reese's Cup idea, but for me, it would probably be like Hershey's. Hershey's
straight up chocolates.
Straight up chocolate.
Nothing wrong with that.
My wife has to hide candy when it's in the house, or I will eat it till it's gone.
My most controversial hot take is that I hate chocolate. I don't like chocolate.
That's not
My
as
son
controversial as
doesn't
your Lord
eat
of the Rings
chocolate.
steak.
I think it's a communist plot.
I don't know what that means. Nate, what are your answers? Oh, Lord.
Favorite candy growing up was definitely Twix. Big Twix fan. The worst candy I ever had wasn't necessarily a specific brand or type of candy, but there was once right up the road from us, some of our neighbors were of the Mormon faith, and apparently like Halloween wasn't something they really celebrated. So I went and trick-or-treated at their door, and the parents just went and got the candy that their daughters had gotten from like their school Halloween parties and gave me that.
Recycled candy.
I had felt bad about taking their candy for like 30 years.
It's better than like dropping a nickel in your bag or something, though.
So
You know?
Yates family, if you guys listen to this, I'm sorry. I wouldn't have done it had I known.
Wow.
I've never heard that story. That is amazing. Oh, wow.
Not for those girls.
We had a neighbor that gave away one year when my son was young. They gave away regular comic books. Corey thought that was great.
Did your son get a Black Adam comic book?
No, but he is the one that told me about Black Adam.
Oh, gosh. My son likes the comics, but he didn't even know who Black Adam was. All right, last question. Let's do this. Kyle Kapler. Kyle's question is this. What will happen this offseason? What will happen this offseason? Listen, I told you when we started, this is the spookiest Halloween podcast. And what will happen this offseason? I don't want to answer it because it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. I hope that we do what Bill suggested. We just talk about dive bars all offseason long. Nate, what's going to happen this offseason?
I wish I had a video clip of Clubber Lang in Rocky 3. The prediction, pain. Because that's what it's going to be for Reds fans.
Yeah, we needed that clip. Bill, that's the answer, right?
Yes, that is the answer.
All right. Well, let's put a bow on this one. Let's land this plane. I literally I was talking to Bill earlier and I said, no Reds news this week. We'll be out in 30, 40 minutes. Yeah, well, it's an hour and 12 minutes. I don't know why you all are still listening, if anyone is still listening. And I know that some of you still do. Yeah, I see the metrics. I see that you're still listening. Bill, any final thoughts for us?
Nope. Thanks for having me back.
Enjoyed it. Nate, final thoughts?
Let's get Reggie Sanders in there. Never forget.
Absolutely. So listen, thank you to everyone for listening and supporting the Riverfront. Please remember to subscribe to the show either on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. We're there wherever you are. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're at Riverfront Cincy. That's at Riverfront Cincy on every platform. And once again, a huge thank you to our supporters at patreon.com/Riverfront Cincy. The show literally would not be possible without the support of our Patreon family. So we'd love for all of you to join in our hijinks. Come on over and hang out with us. A couple bucks to get you in there. Just go to patreon.com/Riverfront Cincy or click the link in the show notes. For Nate Dotson, for Bill Lack, for Reggie Sanders and Johnny Gomes, this is Chad Dotson saying, so long, everyone.